And welcome into Lock It In with Cam Rogers right here on Believe. We've got a very special guest right here on the program, Kasey Hudson, host of Casing the League, new show here on Believe. Also, BetQL analyst, overall betting extraordinaire. Kasey, what is up?
Hi, Cam. I almost said good morning. It's good afternoon. I already talked with you about how this morning went. But other than that, it's such a great day. We're heading into the summer times. It's exciting hockey, except for last night, that embarrassment by the Dallas Stars. And now we live to see if LeBron finally retires and if the Heat can shut down the doubters. It's a lot of excitement,
A
just
lot
in a
of
weird way.
storylines. A
I
lot of
know.
storylines to track, especially with the summer vibes coming, Memorial Day weekend. Any plans this weekend, by the way?
To be as low key as possible. It's been crazy because hockey's still going and then trying to start preparing for football season. It's just finding the sweet spot for those off season moments because off seasons don't exist anymore. So they're off season moments. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going
Right.
to relax and find some water time, either the beach or the pool, and call it a weekend. What about you?
There you go. I love it. I've got actually a wedding at Congressional Golf Club, Lottie Daw in Maryland.
Oh,
So that should be interesting. That is on Sunday. And then Saturday, a little golf, little
not.
cookout action. So, you know, got to detox to retox now. You know what I mean? So a whole lot of yoga and sweating before the drinking begins. So
Before you load up. There you go.
exactly. Well, hey, let's talk about what went down last night. Knights, Stars, game 3, hardly a game. The Knights
Ugh.
crushed Dallas. They're up 3-0. The obvious answer to my question, is this over, is yes. Is there
Mhm.
any shot here, Kasey, with Dallas?
I'm gonna go with a hard no, and I'm usually more of an optimist, but the reason I just can't find any positives in this lining right now is because you have a huge game 3 and you played your most undisciplined emotional hockey that we've seen yet. And Ottinger has had his inconsistent moments, but I was praising this guy a couple weeks ago for what he was producing between the pipes. I thought he was going to kind of be the stronghold for this Dallas team, but Dallas is looking to have no defense. They're looking to be undisciplined. They're looking to be playing more emotional than strategic. And you can't do that versus a Vegas Golden Knights team that has like 6 or 7 guys who have already won a Stanley Cup and an upper hand when it comes to veteran experience. So they're just kind of being edged out in a number of boxes, from discipline to veteran presence to defense, which was already a huge conversation heading into this matchup. And then you've got Aiden Hill, who's just has this composure and is producing so well for goaltending for them. And he's not even their top goaltender. He's like their third string guy. So I've kind of ruled it out now, because even if Dallas comes back and wins a game or two, I don't think they have that Stanley Cup experience and that level headedness to, make a 3-0 comeback.
Give me a history lesson here with hockey. Obviously, we know in the NBA, they have never come back down 0-3, any team ever. Has
Mm-hmm.
anybody in the NHL?
Yes, there has been a
Okay.
couple teams in the NHL. I want to say that the Capitals were one of those teams that managed to do so. The Bruins, and then there is a Canadian team, which I cannot put my finger on which one, that was able to make that 3-0 comeback. So it has happened a number of times.
Okay.
As for conference finals, it's not as popular as like round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, is where we've seen that kind of happen a couple more times. The Tampa Bay Lightning was actually one of the teams that made a comeback. It was 3 years ago, being down 0-3 in
Your
the
team, right?
second round. My team, yeah, my
Okay.
my predominant coverage team. So it does happen a bit more than it does in the NBA. That's the exciting part about playoff hockey. It's just like, it's lucky bounces, it's goaltending, but it's also your guys that can find ways to score regardless of their opponent, and anything can happen in hockey. 5 minutes left in the NHL is just an immense amount of time, more than
Hmm.
any other sport, because if
You,
things bounce, then the game changes.
it's interesting because in the NBA playoffs, a lot of players will sort of save themselves for the next game. So the
Mm-hmm.
last 5 minutes maybe won't be as dramatic as, say, in the hockey sphere, if you will. Really interesting analysis there. All right, let's talk about tonight. We've got Hurricanes, Panthers, praying for more competitiveness compared to last night, Kasey. What do you make of this matchup here? We've got the Panthers minus 106 on the money line, Hurricanes minus 104.
I know. I like the Panthers minus 106 on the money line for a number of reasons. Being able to have this game 4 at home is such a big deal for the Panthers, not because their home record is this like awesome, tremendous record, but they're 3-3 right now at home. And they just have this ability to be more consistent on home ice. And the consistency that we're looking for in this major game 4 matchup is going to come down to Sergei Bobrovsky. If he can continue to come up strong with the saves that he's doing, then he's going to help swing in favor for his team to pull off a win. And when it comes to mixing up the lines. So covering the Tampa Bay Lightning, head coach John Cooper is one of the top coaches in the league for throwing his lines in the blenders. So when he needs to create a momentum spark, he will change up his lines entirely. It doesn't matter what time is on the clock or what period. We're looking at two teams that don't really shuffle their lines as much, but if there is a team that tends to do it more, it's the Florida Panthers. Carolina tends to get stuck in their structure and relying on specific guys to get the job done, where the Panthers will get a little bit more unorthodox, especially on home ice. So you're looking at them going to try to create chances and sparks around guys like Carter Verhaeghe, around Barkov, who's cleared to return to the game tonight, around Sam Bennett, around Matthew Tkachuk, and Anthony Duclair, who's been tremendous since returning from injury. So I just think that there's a couple more things that stack in favor of the Florida Panthers, especially on home ice. And I like that money line for them to pull off that sweep.
There's the value on the sweep here tonight. All right, Kasey, if it is indeed, and it seems like it's going to be, Knights versus Panthers in the Stanley Cup Finals, what do you make of that matchup? Johnny Lazarus, also a host here on Believe, thinks it's going to be great for the game of hockey. What say you?
I think it's going to be fantastic too. For starters, Vegas Golden Knights, I think people are forgetting that they were just an expansion club, 5 years ago? So they're
I know.
still very new to all of this. And with that newness, with that the different rosters that they've brought to the table over the last 5, 6 seasons, they've gotten so close. They've actually had pretty deep postseason runs. They've made the playoffs more consistent than they're getting credit for. And then you've got this Panthers team who most of their accolades and recognition come from 1996, but now they're kind of riding the high of that reverse President's Trophy curse. Exactly. And we're seeing so much amp and so much hype around teams that haven't had that opportunity in so long. So you've got a new expansion team who, yeah, they're still fairly new. And then you've got this team that's been around for, 30-ish years, just like the Tampa Bay Lightning. And you've got players on both ends that just make this game that much more exciting to watch, because it's not going to be your top NHL scorers like we were talking about with the Oilers, or Aho for the Canes, or, the list goes on and on and on. Rangers and everyone out of the tri-state area. You're talking about guys that are going to have more of a motor on them and have more of a ability to wear down their opponents. You're looking at two strong teams that just kind of have this endurance and this third lung to play this game of hockey, which we're hopefully going to see better result on the scoreboard because of these two teams and their abilities to score and what's going to happen with their goaltenders. And I think that the Panthers are going to find themselves in a great position to show everyone that they actually are a great team top to bottom, from their scorers to their defense to their goaltending, versus Vegas Golden Knights, who are a little bit stronger on the defensive end.
I'm really curious what the price would be for both of those teams if that is indeed the Stanley Cup Finals matchup. What do you think? Who's going to be the favorite there?
Oh,
tough
that's
call.
That is a tough call. Because we've seen Vegas just, you can't really put Vegas in a box. I've learned the hard lesson with that, especially when it comes to betting. Because to see what they did against one of the highest offensively sound teams in the Oilers just kind of makes it that much more interesting to see how they'll pan out versus the Florida Panthers. And the Panthers are playing actual fun hockey. They're so calm, they're so composed, and it's almost getting to a point where they look unorthodox. Like there's not much of a structure there. They're just trying to smother and be insufferable team coverage wise. Florida has a bigger forechecking asset, in my opinion. Forechecking plays in a huge role when it comes to trying to swing in favor of who's going to win a game. And then if Bobrovsky just continues to build off what he's doing, and round by round, statistically, he's just gotten better from round 1 to round 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 4, I would only bank or bet statistically that he will continue to increase. His save percentage from every angle is sitting at a 94% plus, which is insane to think about. So I'd have to lean towards the Panthers just because of the numbers and I guess the overall consistency of the boxes that they check. But I don't want to count out a team that has 6, 7 Stanley Cup winners already. That experience comes in so handy at those opportune moments, and obviously a Stanley Cup final.
All this hockey lingo. I'm learning so much right now. I love it. Let's turn to the NBA, though, Kasey, here. Obviously, the Lakers are no more as far as the playoffs are concerned. Now, the buzz right now is LeBron James and his future. Obviously, non-committal after getting swept about his future in the NBA. And you always have to take those responses with a grain of salt because you just got swept. What do you make of those comments? Do you think he's going to retire? Do you think he should?
I think that you nailed it on the head. I think that the response was still very emotionally heightened response because I look at it this way. Usually, when guys start having this retirement discussion, it's because they're slowing down. Their numbers are kind of changing. Their longevity isn't particularly there. Now, considering the injuries that LeBron faced this season, considering the games that he missed, and then the numbers that he put up upon his return, you definitely have 2 more seasons left in you. So I think it was just more of a dramatic high. It was a tough way to go out. The last thing you want to do is overcome the Warriors the way that you did and then get swept by the Nuggets, who weren't getting enough respect put on their name. So I think it was just more of like an embarrassing emotional response. Like, if this is how this is going to go, I might as well make my exit now. But why not come back and correct those mistakes? Because you still got it. You don't post 30 points like it's nothing and then walk away from the game.
Not to make this all about me, but as I was asking that question, I just automatically remembered back in my day in college when I played intramural flag football and I was quarterback. And after the games, my friends always loved to do like press conferences after. And one game I lost like 80-2. Ugh, it was gross. And I had no desire to talk to anybody after that game. So LeBron, I understand. I get it. Let's talk about the odds, though, Kasey. This is interesting about the next team that LeBron James will be on if of course he is traded or, something else happens with him and the Lakers. Right now, the Knicks and the Sixers are the favorites at 3-1 to acquire LeBron James this offseason. Is this just for fun when these odds come out, or do you actually see some relevancy to him maybe getting traded?
At this point, I would say it's just for fun. Because for starters, when he was building out his career with with Cleveland, he wanted to stay there for the most part. He's very much a loyal kind of person. He wanted to make everything career-wise revolve around Cleveland. Also, it being his hometown and stuff. When it came to that difficult decision, we saw how torn he was about if he was to go elsewhere, what it would mean to him to do so, and what it would take. The Lakers being one of the most legendary teams out there, and the history that sits behind this team is where he was more so swayed to be like, okay, if I have to make a transition, I'll do it for this historic team, as in the Lakers. I don't think that that's something that comes with 2, 3, 4 teams. I mean, if there's a prized possession that an athlete holds so dear to their career and their accolades, I think it's either remaining in one jersey or remaining in 2 jerseys tops. But the less time you spend bouncing around, I think, means a lot to these guys. So keeping it in LA, now that his sons too, like, they're getting ready to start their life and their careers in LA and in the California market, he's not going to want to be too far away from that. They're a big family unit, the James family. So I think he's going to want to stay with LA, or at that point, we really are talking about retirement. Now, for fun, if I could see him on a different team,
where's the value?
Throw him with the 76ers if I had to pick. Yeah.
That would be fun. LeBron and Philly. That would be something. That is for sure. Okay. Well, I was actually set to talk to you about the NBA Finals matchup, but the Celtics did not get swept. They won last night, obviously. And how about this line now, Kasey, for Game 5? -8.5 for the Celtics. The money line is majorly juiced up, -305. What's going on here? Wow. Shenanigans from Vegas? What do you think?
Yeah, Vegas is drinking the Boston juice. If we've learned anything from Boston sports this season, is you don't turn around and get that juiced up about anything. Right. No offense, Boston fans. I have a lot of love and respect for you all, I swear. But yeah, I don't understand how they'd get that juiced up, because the Heat controlled the first half of the game. That's for sure. But what we're seeing, and that's what we typically see with deep runs is that when you're relying on one athlete to throw the team on their back, you're not going to see much success there consistently. Now,
Mm.
obviously, Tatum has been able to do that for the Boston Celtics, but we haven't seen, and we've seen him be able to, pull that momentum game by game by game and going from the second series to the third series. But I think the Heat will do better to kind of distribute the ball a little differently, not trying to make it the Jimmy Butler situation. They've been down when it comes to having healthy guards that can actually produce. And where they benefited to have such a strong start was the fact that they had that extra time off and their veterans needed that. But you need Kevin Love to come in and be helpful and have more than a 7-minute night. He only played 5 minutes the night before. So I think if they start distributing the ball a little differently, we're going to see the Heat close the deal here. Celtics, they're relying on Tatum to get it done. White, he showed up tremendously. I will say that, but we haven't seen him consistently roll those statistics over game by game by game. So I think it's a little juice for Boston to say that they're going to take another game.
So you are leaning money line plus 255 with the Heat?
Yes.
Okay.
You don't seem to, you seem to hate that.
Well, I feel like I don't know what to really think of this Celtics team. Like, to your point, they're just so frustrating because it's hard to understand like what you're going to get from them. I feel like they escaped from that 76ers series, honestly. To
and a lot of people got high on that. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Looking at statistically comparing the Celtics to the Heat heading into this, like, did I expect a sweep like everyone thought that was going to happen to the Heat? Absolutely not. But did I expect a bigger battle or maybe like a split result at this point between the Heat and the Celtics? Absolutely. So a lot of it comes down to how the guards can step up. And obviously the Boston Celtics have healthier guards and Smart's been tremendous. White's been tremendous. Tatum has thrown the team on his back. But as for the experience, I mean, I always go back to experience for playoffs conversations. And I think the Heat just kind of the upper hand there. And I think it's going to help them at the end of all of this. So I don't know. It's tough.
Here's what I'll say. ALCS 2004, Red Sox down 0-3, win 4 straight against the Yankees. And of course, they go on to win the World Series. And that was the first time a team has ever come back from that. So, hey, we could see it with the Celtics this season. Okay, turning to the NFL here, Kasey, let's talk about some interesting futures that you actually pointed me to. You can bet on teams to start 5-0 to the year. Chiefs and Bills are the favorites at plus 650. Where is the value in your opinion?
So this was a fun one for me just because you look at what changes took place in the offseason, what the draft grades were, and you want to lean towards showing some love for the Bills. The Bills have been this close but no cigar team for 3 seasons now, 4 seasons. And as a fan, not me, but as a fan base, I'm sure it's tough to watch. And as somebody who's covered the NFL for going on 9 years now, it's just like you want to see them finally get the job done. But looking at their first 5 games of the season, they already lost to the Miami Dolphins last year. I think it was like week 3. They have the Dolphins early on again. They have the Jets and the hype of Aaron Rodgers. And so if they don't attack the beginning of the season mentally strong, they're not going to go 5-0. Not saying they're not a mentally strong team. I have a lot of trust in this staff and stuff, but I think that they'd rather have that build up and make those slow changes game by game rather than trying to come out the gate hot. I think Eagles have a better chance of being another team that starts 5-0. They did it last year. Their opening season is pretty much replicated to who they face again. But if I was to take a swing for the fence, I think the Miami Dolphins have a chance to open up 5-0.
Whoa. To a mania.
You gotta give it to the guys that made the right changes in the offseason. And Miami was fun to watch, and their offense was quite explosive regardless of the injury prone roster that they had. It was the fact that they weren't strong defensively. They couldn't stop their opponent from scoring points and matching what they were doing. So they made some movements to pick up on defense, and I think that they're putting themselves in the prime position to learn from those mistakes and get off to at least a hotter start than last year. And I think last year, through 5 games, I think they only had 2 losses.
Well, here's what I will say about playing in Miami, as you probably know. In September, October, hot, humid, tough for a team like Buffalo or those northern teams, right? The atmosphere.
Oh, yes.
So they have the upper hand, the Dolphins do. I wonder what the number is. Maybe 11-1 to start 5-0, something like that for the Dolphins. Pretty good value.
But you're totally right. I mean, that's where the weather factor plays such a huge role. I mean, it's the hottest ever in August and September down here in Florida, and these guys are conditioning through those through those
Right.
elements, you know? They got all the puke out of their system. They passed out a number of times at training camp, and now they're ready to go and use that to their advantage. And it's funny because I think it was like 4 Pro Bowls ago, I got a chance to interview TJ Watt, because I wanted to know like where the up where players kind of find themselves having an upper hand, and he was the one who was telling me that like weather actually, where you played in college, where you played before your college career, and where you play in the NFL, all that experience helps you have an upper hand. So him being from Wisconsin and dealing with snow and playing outside as well as inside and learning how to like warm up in those negative temperatures, he's like, playing anywhere else is cake for me except for when we get to Florida and I have to deal with heat strokes. And I was like, that.
Totally makes sense. Unless you're Tom Brady, you can play in 0 degrees and also 90 and win Super Bowls, apparently. That's a thing.
I
So
Yeah, it's just he's a chameleon. He could just readjust to
great
his
way to put it.
atmosphere. Yeah, he's just one of a kind, clearly.
Tom Brady, the GOAT, as they say. Kasey Hudson joining Lock It In with Cam Rogers. Kasey, thank you so much for the time. How can the people follow you?
Oh my gosh, of course. Thank you for having me, Cam, and welcoming me to the Believe
Of
family.
course.
You can find me at the Sports Case, Kase, and that's on all social media platforms. And then, of course, Casing the League being a brand new show with Believe, which I'm so stoked about. Just more hockey talk and nerding out over it. It's really not to intimidate anyone because hockey jargon, as you said, it's its own ballpark. But I created a page for that, Casing the League, Kasing, and yeah, you can find me on Believe Network.
Kasey Hudson joining Lock It In. Thanks so much.
Thank you.